And we're going. So, YouTube has said I can upload videos as long as I want. So today I'm going to do the format slightly differently. I'm going to answer questions that people send me. And I can just keep on going as long as I like. I'm just checking in to see if there's anything in particular I would like to talk about. First of all, you can't get out of suffering. You can't get out of suffering. Because the you is suffering. So what is it that I mean by the you? The one that believes they are the doer, that they create and control life. This is suffering. The belief in a separate entity, the image of self. Happiness can never, ever be found in the flow of life. You are happiness. You are beingness. And beingness is ecstatic to be alive. It's just when the image of self is veiling beingness, contraction and discomfort appears. But your true nature, who you are, is perfect love, perfect happiness, and beingness. And so you, the seeker, can never ever get out of suffering. As long as the seeker is there, there will be suffering. There will be discomfort and agitation because you're believing you need something else. That's the nature of self. To seek, to do, that is the nature of the identification. To be a something, to get something. And you are none of that. And yet, in beingness, existence, there's always the play of life. And there always will appear to be this character, thinking and being and acting in time and space. It's the nature of this world. And so the character will always appear in stories. You can never get out of that. They will always talk in stories, in past, in ideas. So I might talk about the past story of Lisa, but there's no belief here or sense that that's who I am. She's just divinely peering in a thought, in a sensation, in this moment. But that story is as relevant as this computer and this window at the side of me. It's as relevant. Some people think that then you have to ignore the relative. But the relative is what the character plays in, and it's divine. It can create these magical stories that never happen and are never serious when they're taken seriously. There's suffering, when they're believed in, there's suffering. And it's another dance of form, just as important and relevant as the wind blowing. As the leaves, I live in a forest, so I'm looking at the trees and the leaves, as the leaves dancing in the wind. As anything is as important as anything. But it's just not true. It's not truth. It's not who you are when you believe that you're this character and this character has to survive and do things in life. There will always be discomfort. So let's bring it back down to everyday living. Because that's the important thing here. It's the experience in everyday living. So I had the comment the other day, happiness is an experience in life, and it's not who you are. It depends what you mean by happiness. Like everyone has a different interpretation of happiness. And I do say who you are is happiness. And it seems that by knowing who you are, by seeing the space and the beingness, and no longer believing yourself to be the stories, believing yourself to be this character, there is natural happiness in the character. There's natural relaxation that overtakes the character, that's written into the character. Expansion and love. A natural ease to life. So I would actually say to both, I would say that happiness is your true nature, but not happiness as an experience. Happiness is in space, acceptance, love. No thing. But then I'd say happiness is also what happens to the character, and this is seen. Then I'd also say, another sentence, that actually there is no truth of who you are. You just are. And all of those are just pointings. It's really difficult to point to this. So, who you are is absolutely in love with life and absolutely happy. Beingness is ecstatic to be alive. But when the veil of self-identification comes up, then a suffering appears. This is only ever a pointing. Don't take anything I say as truth. Chuck it all out of the window. Listen to it while I'm speaking, then chuck it out. Don't believe in anything I say. So anyway, I was going to take it down to everyday living. So one of the biggest changes that happens here, what's happened here in this story, is because there's no longer the belief or the energy of the doer, blame doesn't really arise. Anger can. It's not like I'm sit passively on the sofa and don't do anything. So if someone was running over my feet, it'd be like, stop, you're running over my foot, oh my God, what's wrong with you? That energy can arise. But there's no sense actually that they did it or it's their fault. And that's not an intellectual concept, it's just a reaction to situations. So say if somebody's having a go at me, there's not a sense that they're wrong or right really, it's just what it is. And there's not the story here, you shouldn't be saying that. How dare you speak to me like that? I don't want you to speak to me like that, trying to avoid what they're saying. There's just in a way pure experience, just hearing, seeing, sensation, and there's more than likely, if someone's having a go at you, I'll walk away, be walking away. Actually, you might sit and hear it out, might even say, well, no, that's actually not true. But in all of that, it's like there's an emptiness to it all. There's no belief in it. And emotions still do arise, but there's no sense that life isn't how it should be. So whenever the thoughts are popping up, this person shouldn't have done that, who do they think they are? Or another very good one of the ego is to try, especially when you're into spirituality, is try to find out where their sticking point is. So they might say something to you, yes, but they're saying that to you because they're saying that to me because they're stuck in trying to avoid this because of something that happened in their childhood, or they're trying to do this, or what they're trying to do is make me believe in this and that. Any of that is actually a form of blame. Like, why? You don't need to think about the other person's motivations as to why they're doing something, or how they're manipulating you, or how they're trying to get a situation. I mean, this might rise, but gently, not obsessively thought about. Like, there might be a sense, okay, so this person, is experiencing a lot of anger because of, their car's just been written off, a tree's just fallen on a car, and blah, 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 blah. So there might be some sort of thought process around it. But as soon as you obsessively start trying to analyse why someone does something or how they're stuck in suffering, you're actually stuck in suffering too. You're resisting them. And the key to it all is, how do you feel? If you feel uncomfortable, then it's the mind. It's the mind playing tricks on you, pretending that life shouldn't be as it is, pretending there's something that needs to be done, there's a solution that needs to be found, and that life should be happening a different way. And the ego, I don't even like the word ego, the mind is hilarious. It tries everything. It tries to work out, so it's hard for me to think of these situations. So it tries to work out in the best way to deal with the situation. And this seems like very logical and practical, but it obsessively thinks about how best to deal with the situation. You don't need to think about how to deal with the situation. Dealing with a situation happens. There might be contemplation of a situation, but of the best way to deal with the situation. But this is very different to the mind obsessing on something, because what the mind's trying to do is get a certain outcome, get the person to behave a certain way, to see from your perspective, to understand you. None of this needs to be done. Life is simply just happening. So one of the questions I received this week was about rejection and projection, particularly. And really, ultimately, nobody can be rejected. Nobody is rejected. Simply life is happening. So to think that that you have been rejected is to think there is a somebody here or a somebody there rejecting you, and somebody is being rejected. So there's a projection onto them of their actions, of something they do, as if they're separate from all of this. So they've personally rejected you. So let me take this to a personal situation. So in my last relationship, my ex-partner broke up with me. And there's no sense that they rejected me. There's no sense that they abandoned me or left me or anything like this. What happened was, one day the motivation came into them to be in a different situation, not be in this situation with me. But they didn't personally think that thought just arose. The same way as when the thought was arising to want me. But then suddenly the thought just changed. Not by someone, not for someone, it's just what life wrote in. So their life went a different way and my life went a different way. They didn't reject me, because who is there to reject? Who is doing the rejecting? And this is a deep, I think, something deep that goes inside of everybody, is a sense of, like, it hits a lot of chords in most people, because ultimately they feel rejected by life, by God. As soon as they're born and the separate identity starts, they have a sense that they've been rejected from God. They've been kicked out of the Garden of Eden by beingness. They've been kicked out by oneness. But it can only be that sense when you believe that you're a separate individual running around in life and that you aren't life itself. aren't life itself. So as soon as you believe that there is somebody here and somebody there, there is projection and rejection, projecting onto them that they're a separate entity, a separate being, somebody who has free will and choice, and that can do life, and there's somebody here that can reject you. Life happens impersonally. In the same manner that somebody accepts you, it's the same way as someone rejecting you. It can never happen. It's like if you had two characters in a book. Now it appears if there's two characters, it appears that the lover rejects the other lover, but that's only a story. Okay, book's not good. Let's go to a film. So in the film, one lover rejects the other lover, but that's only the film, that's only the story. Did it ever happen? It didn't happen to the actors. It's just happening in the apparent story, but it's never happening to the characters. It's just written that way. It's like then the actor being offended that the other character rejected their character. So all those times that you apparently feel rejected or abandoned never happened. There's no truth in them. That's all created in the mind. Not that you created the thoughts, but that's all just the way in which the story is written. For you to take it personally and feel like you were rejected. But how come one? This is all oneness. How can oneness reject itself? There's never two. It just appears that way. And this sense of rejection seems to go so deep in the character. We spend our whole life trying to run away from being rejected. We spend our whole life trying to be loved, trying to be accepted. But you're already accepted. Just by life happening, all of it's accepted. All of it's being seen. All of it's being witnessed. So you never need to find acceptance. It's only in the identity, in the story, that appears to be needing acceptance. But by whom? You're just trying to be accepted by yourself. So it's only in the belief of self and other. I am a separate entity, and they are a separate entity. They are doing something to me. They are rejecting me. And there's no longer self and other. It's just actions. It's just the way it's written. It's so beautiful. No one ever got rejected. No one ever needs to find themselves. No one ever needs to be accepted. It just appears that way. This is like a dance. You try and dance through the words. To speak about something that can't be spoken about. Really, my eyes say it all. But until that is seen, I carry on dancing with the words. Gives me an excuse to sit here and look at you all. So I wrote these questions down. So rejection, projection. I mean, this is a huge subject, and it's easier if I'm talking live with someone about this, because I can bounce it back with them and see where they're not seeing what I'm saying. But here, because this is just natural to me, I'm trying to imagine or remember what it was like not to understand this. And so I most probably skip many stages and just go straight for the ultimate answer. And I'm just talking to myself like this. Right, talking about this and finance. Okay, so somebody wrote me a question about finance and another question about how to talk about this. They were saying that this is impossible to talk about, and they feel like a fraud every time they talk about it. Because there's nothing to say, there's nobody to liberate, there's just life happening perfectly. However, but also the talking of this is happening in exactly the same way. If the urge comes up to talk about it, just let it out. It's not that there's a you there to let it out, but it just comes out. And there's a sense of holding on, or an idea of how it should be talked about, or that this can't be talked about, shouldn't be talked about, or that it's not correct. It's another idea, in a way very subtle, that you're doing something. And so at the moment currently what's happening in your experience is the sensations coming up that I'm a fraud to talk about this, it's a fraud to talk about this. Or it's not natural to talk about this. But that's another thought bubbling up. And then when talking about this happens, it's absolutely perfect. Absolutely. And it's as perfect as the person talking about getting drunk on Saturday night and pulling women. It's no different. It's just written in here that Lisa loves to talk about happiness. And it's never, ever going to be correct or true. Ever. And often when I say things and make statements, another thought pops up, but that's not quite true. And sometimes I then try and elaborate on that, or say it's not true, but It's just all the stuff that's coming up. And it is impossible to talk about. It's just a dance. And this is just the dance, the story of liberation. Which is another story. A divine story. I mean, they're all divine stories, but not that this one's any better than the other stories, but I love talking about liberation. I love all of this. To not suffer anymore. And it's talked about in time and space, which will never ever grasp it, because it's not about time and space. It's about oneness. It's about silence and stillness and nothing. And so the way it's put into words is through a dance of them, through contradictions. I remember in the story here loving holding contradictions. You know, one teacher that said you have to sit and meditate and watch the mind, and another teacher says there's nothing to do and nobody there, and that this teacher's a load of rubbish. Whatever arises in the story is absolutely perfect. There is no way, there is no wrong way, there is just what happens. And so the thought comes up, from listening to this teacher, the thought comes up, so now I need to meditate. Really, it's never happening in cause and effect, but we're just talking relatively. So you sit there and you meditate for 2 hours, and that's the story. And it's not that the meditation will lead to liberation or to the end of suffering, but liberation happens in an apparent story, to an apparent character. Ultimately, there is nobody here getting liberated. The character is seen through, but it happens in time and space for most people. For some people, they've never heard about this subject, and bang, it's just the end of the story, and it's all seen through. So it doesn't have to happen in time and space and through an apparent process, but it does for most. It did here. And so we talk about it, because that's what comes up. I just flicked onto the question of rejection and projection. I'm just going to go back to that question. Some more thoughts came up on it. So I said that my past boyfriend, he broke up with me. Now, if there was a sense that he, as a separate entity, broke up with me, there would be great suffering. There would be sense of, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, nobody loves me, or I'm not loved enough, he's better than me. All these emotions. But when You don't see life like that. It's like they broke up with you, there's sadness there, but there's no sense that it happened to me, that I'm being rejected. There's not that dimension, there's not that level of suffering. It's nothing personal. It's nothing to do with my characteristics. Or my way of being, we blame that in the apparent story. It's because of this or because of that. But that's just the dance of the story, really. The truth is what was written in there, it's no longer the desire to be in the relationship. And that's it. So there's no lingering on that subject. There's no sense of rejection. In fact, like jokingly, you could almost say it's mutual, because that's mutual in the sense of, how to put this into words. It's almost like he's no different from me, he is me. Like he's contained in all of this, which is me. He's not appearing separately to me, he's appearing in me. Not me, the separate entity, Lisa, or the character or anything like that, but me as in awareness and space. He's not appearing outside of me, rejecting me. He's me. He's doing the perfect dance of me. And because of that, we're great friends. There's no discomfort in our relationship. We actually, for a long period, and it's changing now, but lived together, carried on living together. There's no sense that there was just no resentment or anger. Resentment and the anger and the rejection only comes when there's belief that they did something to me. Where is this me? Where? Go and you shut your eyes and where is it? What is it they rejected? It goes endlessly. You shut your eyes and there's endless space. There's infinity. This physical image in the mirror. I mean, what did they reject? This endless space that's watching, which is it. It's so impersonal, life. The next time someone shouts at you, they're not shouting at you, they're just appearing, doing this dance. If you're the watching, where is you and other? They're appearing in it as much as this body. Okay, so let's go on to finance. So this question I'm asked a lot, because it seems to be that a lot of people that get into this subject then no longer have a desire to earn money, or to have a career, or to be successful at a career, or to get lots of money. So often their jobs change dramatically. Or the flow of money changed dramatically. This all falls away. So Um, so thoughts or worries about money don't really come up here anymore. Obviously, we need food and money to food and money. We need money to buy food and to do things. And that money needs to be earned. But there's a big difference between the separate entity needing and wanting money and the earning or getting of money. The second one, earning and getting money, that's just what happens. So this body, mind, does Skype sessions with people, or she works at a cafe, where I work at my cafe. And that's what happens. But there's no sense that there's not that constant anxiety going around. Like, I'm not comfortable in money. I'm not set up for life money-wise. There is a vulnerability here to money, but it's not seen as a vulnerability to money. In a way, this body-mind is dependent on money to carry on surviving. And if money stops, food stops, water stops, a secure house stops. But it's not. It's not feared. It's not, seen as vulnerable, even though physically it puts that body-mind in a situation. But you're not the body-mind. You're the watching, you're the beingness. And you can stay in the dynamic of being scared of money, or being scared that life won't provide money, and you will suffer. Believing that you need to protect and save this body. If it's the destiny of this body to starve to death, that is what is written. And there is no fighting or struggling or anything that can happen to stop that. Nothing. Nothing. Life will do exactly what it's meant to do, and there's nothing you can do to change or influence it or create it. I'm not saying give up your work, but just be aware, as long as you're caught in that dynamic of fear to money, there will be suffering. And the reason you fear money is because you believe you're a separate entity. You believe that you have to create it and do money. And we're taught so young, what are you going to be when you're older? What's your job going to be? How are you going to earn money? How are you going to support yourself? It's drummed in for so many years. People are so attached to this. Love and money. And this being's had lots of lessons around money. I talked about my ex-boyfriend, and he used to financially support me. It wasn't that way in the beginning, but then as the relationship progressed, that's what began to happen. And went through this process of fear around them and losing them and not having money and not being able to live and being vulnerable. But this isn't the truth at all. Came to a point here where it was like, you can't control life. Any trying to control these situations or make yourself safe is suffering. It comes and goes, money. I remember the point where I finally gave in and let him support me. And be vulnerable to that. Completely vulnerable to that. It was divine. Okay. So at any moment he can cut me off. It can be written into the story that he cuts me off. Living on the edge. So really what money is a fight for survival. You're not the body. You don't need to make the body survive. You're the beingness, the watching. And the body appears in that beingness and does its little dance, like the window and the tree, believing that you can control money, or how money comes to this character is like believing that you can control the wind. It just happens. The motivation appears to go and work, or it doesn't appear. The motivation appears to give up, or it doesn't appear. The motivation to live on the edge, to be supported with your partner, appears or doesn't appear. It's completely impersonal. Life takes you on this wild and crazy journey, like the feather blowing around in the wind. It takes here and here and here and here. And the fear is of feeling abandoned and desolate and out of control, but you're always out of control. The Buddha was homeless. He gave up everything. He came from royalty. He gave it all up. Put on a robe, took a begging bowl, shaved all his hair off, and walked the streets his whole life. Even when he became famous as the Buddha, he carried on walking the streets with nothing. And when he was hungry, he put his bowl out, and food appeared. And when he was thirsty, he put out his cup. I can tell you, he was more happy, relaxed, and at peace with life than all the billionaires that lived in his society. Let it come. What a relief. It's to walk out on the street with nothing. I'm hungry, and food comes. I'm thirsty, and water comes. What do you really need? I mean, come on, if you're in the Western country, you're never going to starve to death. It's all an imagination. This whole fear around money is an imagination. None of it has truth. Look at the Buddha's story. I don't know too much about Jesus, but I think he too was homeless. I think he just walked around the countryside and got food when he needed food and water when he needed water. But I don't think he had a home. I don't think he had money. I don't know much about Jesus. So I don't know what to say. Look at Ramana Maharshi. left home, went and lived in a cave, or under the temple for years, and then in a cave, people took him and brought him food and water. It's such a trapping, this whole finance. Love and money. I want love, I want money too. Two big sufferings. Create a lot of suffering, wars. I need to be safe, I need money. It's an imagination. It's not done by anyone. It's not you doing it. It's not you making the mistake. It's just the way it's written. Wow, you should see the wind. I can't remember how much they said I could have on YouTube. I'm not sure if it was under an hour or it was just endless. Endless recording time. Well, I've nearly done an hour. I've done all the questions. So today I spoke more relatively. Talked about the story. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's holding both of them. Being able to talk and look at the story, but knowing there is no time, no space. There is only ever just this. But also, the story plays out in just this. It's only ever playing out in this moment. Everything I said is now only a memory, which is appearing now. It didn't appear then, it appeared now. And even if you record me, that's still appearing again now. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to find. It's just this. Always, only, ever this. Ever. When you talk about the past and the future, or think about the past and the future, they're only ever happening now. And they're just as relevant because they're happening now. Just as relevant as the computer. Knowing that's all they are. It's a thought bubbling up and falling away. Only ever this. Which is absolute unknowing. Absolute aliveness, beingness, and loveness with itself. In loveness with what is. It only appears to be suffering, and there's a belief. And there's the sensation of a separate entity that is doing and controlling life. And that just bubbles up now, just in this thought. Just in the sensation. It's not true. It's just a thought. Just an arising. Anyway, much love to you. Thank you.